Yeah, that's, I mean, that was to be expected. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even expect to pick up a Biggie album and not see, me on there. You know what I'm saying? So,
It's possible that Jay-Z is the only other rapper that paraphrases or directly cites Notorious Big as frequently as he does. In the hip-hop game, Jay-Z's friendship with Biggie Smalls has been rather controversial due to the nature of their relationship. It has now been shockingly revealed that one of the reasons may be Jay stealing Biggie's songs. But is there any truth to this? Let's find out. Jay-Z has been accused in the past of taking the lyrics from the late rapper Biggie, which he defends by saying that he does so as a form of paying honor to Biggie. But then this is where Irv Gotti enters the picture. Gotti claims that in the wake of Biggie's passing, Jay-Z was eager to step up and fill the vacuum, but for his own benefit. Wait, what? Additionally, in an interview with Complex, he stated, Jay-Z, he made Reasonable Doubt, which is one of the best rap albums ever recorded. Biggie died, he fled immediately in the direction of the Biggie method. Hence, he reasoned to himself, I'll grab all those fantastic recordings they were planning to give Big. However, Jay-Z being Jay-Z has quite a response to what Irv has got to say about him. Take a look at what the rapper thinks of the accusations made against him. According to Jay-Z, I take Biggie everywhere I go. I've taken him on every step, every accomplishment. He'll be there in some sort of way, whether that be live in concert or on record, or some acknowledgement. I don't have anyone to bounce off of, you understand. We bounced off each other like, oh, that was crazy, I gotta make something crazier. When you don't have that, you don't have that, Cage. It's just hard to adjust, you have to find other ways to motivate yourself. But then what about the 11 times you straight up copied Biggie's lyrics? Of course, we are not implying anything. But there have been 11 instances that reportedly imply that Jay-Z straight up copied lyrics from Biggie's productions. Here's what we know. If you recall Jay's track from the year 2000, I Just Wanna Love You, you should also remember that he stole the opening handful of bars from Notorious Big. Song, The World Is Full, where Biggie said, when the remise in the system, ain't no tellin', and Jay-Z tried giving quite a modified version of that. Honestly, if this single were to be released right now, we would most likely be hearing about Des rather than Remy Martin. Then again, the Jay-Z and $2 Horde collaboration Real N.C., which was released in 1997, is not particularly difficult to analyze. It is a flip of the song with the same name by Notorious Big, which has a little different spelling, and it has a nearly identical hook that has been duplicated several times. You see, there are 9 of such instances where Jay-Z has time and again used similar lyrics or hook lines, and then blatantly sold them as his content. But there's just something that doesn't stick, and that might be what has exposed him. We call it the power of media.
To fight for this marriage. I mean, to fight for it, and to put it all out there.
Having said that, it can all just be a pool of rumors, and well, no one can for sure say that Biggie wouldn't have been okay with Jay-Z doing this if he was here. After all, both were high school buddies and they go way back in history.
me and Big used to be like, we went to high school together.
Many people consider Jay-Z and the Notorious Big to be 2 of the most talented rappers in the history of the genre. Both of these Brooklyn-born MCs have a number of characteristics, not the least of which is an arrogant attitude that comes out in their rhymes and in their recordings. But Biggie himself acknowledged that Hov was more talented as a rapper than he was at the time. In a similar manner, both Notorious Big and Jay-Z experienced upbringings that were comparable from their childhoods through their teenage years. Jay-Z spent his childhood in the Marcy homes, which are located in the Bedford-Stuyvesant borough of Brooklyn. Biggie was raised in the area, and he spent his childhood in an apartment on the border of Clinton Hill and Bed-Stuy that he shared with his mother. In the 1980s, when they were children, New York City was notorious for its high crime and violence rates, and Bed-Stuy was considered to be one of the most dangerous districts in the entire country. The 2 men who would go on to become rappers trafficked crack cocaine to generate money when they were younger, and they even attended the same high school. Yet, despite Bed notoriety, Sty's Jay-Z and Biggie were proud of their roots. At the beginning of the 1990s, West Coast rap was the most popular style of hip-hop, and New York was looking for a fresh new rapper to emerge on the scene and challenge West Coast rap's dominance. In 1994, Biggie did exactly that with his critically acclaimed debut album titled Ready to Die. As a result of his legendary songs such as Juicy, Big Papa, and Gimme the Loot, he then became the face of New York hip-hop. As a consequence of this, he also became one of the faces of the East Coast versus West Coast hip-hop conflict, the other face being his archenemy Tupac Shakur. After that, Jay-Z released his debut album, titled Reasonable Doubt, 2 years later. This album included singles such as Brooklyn's Finest and Dead Presidents 2, which were both collaborations with Biggie. Notice a pattern here. Jay-Z has always tried to stay in Biggie's shadow more consciously than unconsciously. Now, we are not too sure if he did it because he thought that by staying close to Biggie and his success, he could also make sure to become in the spotlight and be noticed in the room, or if it was purely out of love for his childhood buddy. And despite the cocky character he presented in his music, Biggie knew when to be humble, and this included acknowledging when he had been out-rapped by another rapper. Lil Cease even recalls a particular encounter in which Biggie acknowledged Jay-Z's contributions to the music industry. According to him, Big met Jay-Z at the Palladium and they bonded just on some GS because they respected each other as men and they respected each other as artists. Big wasn't afraid to tell that. Big thought he was doper than him. Big used to say, "Yo, that ain't nicer than me." So maybe, just maybe, it was from both ends that the two felt the need to reciprocate, and maybe Jay-Z just can't let go of the affiliation he had at the time with Biggie's music, even up till now, right? No to forget, but in the months that followed the publication of Reasonable Doubt, Biggie and Jay-Z, who had been classmates in high school, remained close friends. Jay-Z even made a cameo appearance on Biggie's album Life After Death, which was released in 1997, only a few weeks after Biggie was murdered in Los Angeles. The record was then released less than a month after Biggie's death. And since Tupac was shot during a studio session 2 years earlier and blamed it on Biggie's gang, the friendship between Biggie and his former friend Tupac had deteriorated by the time 1996 rolled around. Thus, after the release of Brooklyn's Finest in that same year, Jay-Z even became involved in the fight between Biggie and Tupac. And how can we forget the fact that Jay-Z was the last person to have a conversation with Notorious Big before the latter's untimely death? You heard that right?
His funeral was a massive event. When someone put on Hypnotize.
At the time of his death, Big, whose real name was Christopher Wallace but who was also known as Biggie or Biggie Smalls, was involved in a vicious feud between rappers from the East and West coasts of the United States. This conflict had begun to seep into gang-related violence, and it is believed that a member of one of these rival gangs was responsible for shooting and killing Big. According to Jay, he wasn't a troublemaker at all. He was just a funny, charismatic guy. For him to die so senselessly, I spoke to him that night, and he was so happy to be in Los Angeles after the whole East Coast-West Coast thing. He felt like he finally was back in Los Angeles and everything was where it was supposed to be. He loved being in Los Angeles, and we see this happen in movies when everything is just fine and we hung up the phone, and 1 hour later, he's no longer with us.
I was in the house. Actually, I just got off the phone with him. I was talking to him on the phone, and he was he just like...
Meanwhile, it was a momentous occasion both in New York City and on Twitter Spaces when the Notorious Big celebrated his 50th birthday. Tidal held a Twitter Spaces event titled A Salute to Big, and both Diddy and Jay-Z participated in the event to pay tribute to the late artist Big. Thousands of users on Twitter participated in the chat by listening to Biggie's collaborators, peers, and friends debate the rapper's legacy. Jay-Z even went on to say, "That's a big void. Others stepped in to fill it as well, not just myself." Hey, is this the rapper's way of hinting at how he copies Biggie's lyrics time and again, so to shift the image the audience might now have of him towards a more softer and emotional outlook? Well, whatever it may be, only time will tell if Jay-Z ever decides to give us a nostalgic hit of Biggie's lyrics every now and then via his releases. That's all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.